Hey Beacon, welcome home to your Bounce Back Blueprint Community podcast, where you are challenged to be, do, and have God's best as you thrive on your journey from setback to success. I'm your Bounce Back guide, Tiffany Huff Struthers, and I'll be guiding you on the journey by sharing tips, tools, and the tea on how I was able to bounce back from escaping death, healing from heartbreak, and finding hope in homelessness. And then I wrote an award-winning book all about it. And shout out to God, ever since I was courageous enough to share my story, my life and the lives of women around the world have been forever changed. And as a member of the Bounce Back Blueprint community, I'm called to teach you to do the same. So grab your journal and let's build this blueprint. I'll let you know that if you hear some background noise or the sound on this episode is a little bit choppy, please forgive me. It was an Instagram and Facebook live video that I did, and so I was tapping on the cover of the book, and I think you can hear a little bit of that in the background. You'll also hear me talking to some of the women who were engaging during the video. So prayerfully, it's not too much of a distraction, and you will still be able to wholly receive and be blessed by the content that I'm going to share with, a little more than a month left in the year. I thought this would be a great episode to share with you about how I was able to write my book in 30 days. Not that this is about, it being a marathon, but just to remind you that it's possible. It's still possible, regardless of how long you've been trying or what hasn't worked in the past. You can do it. And so grab your notebook or your journal and tune into this episode. And of course, after you listen, let me know what you think. And I wanted to pop in this morning and share with you the journey of how once I finally sat down and made the commitment to write my book, I did it in 30 days. And specifically, this book, 30 Day Stay, which is an award-winning book. There's a sticker. So this book actually is a very personal, about a very personal experience. The 30 days is actually about my stay in a 30-day domestic violence shelter after being shot by the father of my children. So it was a very personal experience that is being shared, and also the process to writing it was a very deep personal experience. However, when I sat down to write it, it literally took me 30 days. I sat down, I decided at the end of July 2016, literally the last day of July in 2016, that I was finally going to write this book. And so I made the commitment that every day for the month of August, I was going to, hey Tanil, every day for the month of August, I was going to get up and write the book. I was not necessarily sure that I could write it in 30 days, but I told myself that is what I was going to do. So I woke up every day in the month of August 2016, and I wrote this book. So here's the process that I underwent to do it in 30 days. First and foremost, I made my writing a priority. So as women, especially if you are a mom, if you are an entrepreneur, even if you are working full-time outside of the home, if you're involved in anything else beyond working, right? So if you are in a relationship, if you're married, if you serve at all in your community, if you're active in your church, if your children have extracurricular activities, your time is pretty much already consumed, right? We all feel like we need another hour in the day. However, if you are commanding your morning, then you will find that you have much more time to do the things that you know are most important. And so I had to decide that I was going to stop doing the most and focus on doing what was most important. And at that time, I was committed to the most important thing being writing this book. So I woke up every day in the month of August after I had my morning ritual, after I prayed and spent my quiet time with God and I journaled. I wrote. So, well, let me back up because I do have two children and a husband. So at that time, I made sure that everybody was out of the house after I did my morning ritual. Either everybody was out of the house or everybody was committed to whatever they had to do for the day, right? So that I knew I would have uninterrupted time. And then I climbed up the steps because my office is in the attic. And there is no air conditioning up here. So I was thugging with the fan and everything. But I knew I needed to be in a space where I would be uninterrupted and I would be able to focus. So I climbed the steps to the attic every morning and I sat down, me and my laptop, and I wrote. And before I did that, though, I should back up and say one of the other things that I did was research. Seriously, I was up here thugging, but I got her done. I did some research. I wasn't necessarily sure how long the book would be, right? But I did some research about how long the average memoir is, right? How long is that first book? And a lot of places you find will tell you anywhere between 50,000, 75,000 words on average. So I said, okay, if I'm going to write this book in 30 days, then I need to commit to 75,000 words divided by 30. So I had a daily word count. So not only did I commit to writing the first thing in the morning every day, I committed to writing a certain number of words every day. So if I sat down at my laptop at 7 o'clock until I banged out those 2,500 words, I did not do anything else. I did not respond to text messages. I did not make any phone calls. I was not on Facebook. I wasn't on Instagram. I wasn't taking selfies to post to Snapchat. I was focused. And I think people take for granted the level of commitment and discipline it takes to write a book. It's less about your skill to write and more about your willingness to make the commitment and being disciplined to see the process through. So, if you have been challenged to write or finish your book, I want you to be clear or be honest with yourself and take a look at whether or not you've really been committing the time to write a book. You know what I'm saying? Like, and sometimes we get caught up in what could or what might not happen, right? Well, what if I take all this time to write this book and nobody buys it? Well, guess what? Good morning, Charlize. Guess what? You spend 2 weeks, if you have a traditional job, you go to work every day on time for the same number of hours for 2 weeks with the idea in your mind that you're going to get a paycheck at the end of those 2 weeks. Yes, you might have gotten a paycheck the 2 weeks prior, but guess what? Companies go under every day, B. There is no guarantee that you're going to get that paycheck at the end of those 2 weeks. But you've made the commitment to going to work every day because you want that check. You have to look at the writing process the same way. You have to take this journey seriously. If you know you have a story that is going to impact the lives of other people, if you know that God has called you to write a book, because for me, writing this book was a 100% act of obedience. If you know God has called you to write a book, then you need to be committed to doing what God has called you to do, because you know, just like those people are promising you a paycheck, God has a promise for you when you get done with what He's told you to do. That's the same level of commitment you have to have. So if you have, like I said, started the process or thought about starting the process or stopped because you weren't sure what the outcome would be, you need to go back and reevaluate while you're writing the book. Then you need to look at your schedule, look at your priorities, not the things you've always done, not what everybody is expecting you to do. You need to look at your priorities. And if writing your book is really a priority, then there's likely some things in your planner, on your to-do list, and your schedule that need to be moved from your to-do list to your to-don't list until you finish the book. So that's the first thing I did. I got up every morning. I committed to writing first thing in the morning. I had a daily word count that I was committed to writing every morning, and then, or every day, right? Sometimes it took longer than the morning, if I'm honest. And here's what I want to also say to you. If you're writing about a personal account, like I was writing about a personal account in this book, 30 Day Stay, there is a process of healing, right? There is a process that you're going to go through when you ultimately are reliving some of the things that you're writing about. So you have to be patient with yourself and give yourself some grace. And that's why I'm saying you have to really reevaluate what's on your priority list, specifically if you are trying to get the book done in a set amount of time. This was a priority for me because I had been putting off writing this book for a whole decade. I literally started writing this book 10 years to the date that this incident happened in my life. So it was a priority for me because, like I said, it was an act of obedience. God was tired of playing with me. So if it's a priority for you, then you're going to commit the time that it's going to take to write through, work through, and grow through the process of writing. So, okay, let me get back on track. The first thing I did was literally the first thing I did was research about what I should, a goal that I should look at as it relates to, or to give myself an idea as to how many words or how long it might need to be for me to really have an average, or, market and industry standards for a memoir type book. So I did research first. Then I committed to writing every day as soon as I woke up. And I had a daily word count goal every day. The other thing that I said I did was I removed all distractions. So if you decide that you are ready to write your book and you're committed, don't think that you can say, okay, I'm going to write every day on my lunch break at my desk at work. Because guess what? When you're on your desk, when you're at your desk at work, if you're at your computer and you work at a computer, people are going to assume that you're working. And if they talk to you when you're working, then they're going to talk to you when you're writing. The same is true if you decide that you're going to do it in the evening at home. If you know that your family is going to be in a certain space, then you need to find a space in your home where you can have peace and quiet, you can focus, and you will be uninterrupted, right? So that means even if you have a laptop, you cannot post up on the couch in the family room because you think you need to spend quality time with your family and write. You have to be crystal clear about this commitment. You do not take your children to work with you every day if you have a traditional job, right? So you cannot always have a whole bunch of other things going on while you are engaged in the writing process, right? So you need to find a designated space, whether it's in your home, if it's at the library, in a certain corner of the library where you know it's quiet. If you're going to go to a coffee shop, then you know you need to post up at a certain place at a certain time. And I'll be honest with you, if excuse me, if you're going to go to a coffee shop, you need to be very intentional about the coffee shop that you're going to go to, because there are some coffee shops that I go to. There are some coffee shops I go to work, and they start playing Prince, they start playing Whitney Houston, and before I know it, I'm dancing. It's a challenge for me to focus. So be intentional about where you're going to write if you're committed to the process. Don't think you can just be out here in these streets wherever with your laptop and you just going to get her done. You have to be intentional about where. And then the fifth thing that I did, like I said, I have two children. I'm married. Everybody has activities. My children are very busy. I serve on boards. I was in a leadership role at my church. So the other thing that I had to do, not that everybody has to know what you're doing, but those people that are most important to you, specifically those people in your household, they need to know that you have made the commitment. Hey, Amanda, you have made the commitment to writing this book. They need to know that from this time to this time, don't come into this designated area, or don't call me if I leave the house to write. Don't call me unless the house or someone in the house is on fire. If it's not an absolute emergency, figure it out. Wait until I'm done. If nobody's dying, like Kashara told me the other day, if nobody's dying or going to jail and the house is not on fire, talk to me about it later, right? You have to set some really strict boundaries. And sometimes it's challenging, but I can remember when I was doing insanity, the insanity workout, and it was very hard for me. And so I would do it in the mornings. And my children knew on Saturday mornings when they were home, if the door was shut and I tell them in advance I'm exercising, do not come in my room. Don't knock on the door unless something is on fire or somebody is dying. I don't want to be interrupted. And you have to have that same level of non-negotiable commitment to this process. So those are the 5 things that I encourage you to do. If you really are trying to write your book, if you're really not even trying, if you're really committed to writing your book, if you say in the next 30 days, even in the next 60 days, that you want to write your book, these are the things that I recommend you do. Number 1, do some research
this was a book that I started 10 years ago.
The writing process, the expectation, just so you know what you're getting yourself into if you're unfamiliar.
And I knew
Number 2, set some boundaries, right? Let the people in your life who are most important to you. I'm not saying you need to go on Facebook and tell everybody, I'm writing a book, don't message me for 30 days. No, you need to tell the people who are most important to you that you are making a commitment to write this book, and these designated times are specifically for this process. And you would appreciate if they would respect and support you along the way.
Then I will
Number 3, you need to find a space,
and that is to seek out
be it in your home
for help
or elsewhere, where you can shut out distractions.
If research isn't enough, if
where you are able to write without interruption or distraction for the time that you
strongly encourage
Number
you to
4, you need to commit a designated time of day to write. Again, for me, I committed to the very first thing in the morning, and I encourage other people to do the same. And people will always say to me, well, I'm not a morning person. Well, you know what? Sometimes you have to be willing to stretch. Sometimes you have to be willing to do something you haven't done if you want to get something you've never gotten. And so if you're not a morning person, especially if you are very busy. If you're not a morning person, but you know, if you're honest with yourself that there is to write, then I encourage you to get up an hour earlier
or even into 2021.
These
steps will get you there, as well as
set
the
bonus. A goal.
Do not be afraid to ask
for me,
help.
I had a daily word count because, like I said, I knew I wanted this book done in 30 days. For you, it could be that you're going to commit a certain amount of time each day. It could be a word count each day. It could be a chapter each day, depending upon how you're breaking your book down. Whatever it is, set a daily goal if you're going to be committed to the process for a consistent 30 days.
All of the blocks.
Those are my 5 tips. Those are the 5.
And, get the world blessed through the power of your story. And I would be more than happy to help you do that. I hope that this was a blessing for you. I hope that you gleaned some insight from this, and that, it'll get you one step closer to becoming an author and authorpreneur. And of course, if you have any questions about this episode or anything else that has to do with becoming an author and authorpreneur, don't hesitate to reach out to me. You can DM me on Instagram. You can, of course, ask your questions in the community, and you can feel free to shoot me an email. I would love to hear from you. So if you are blessed by this episode, or you know someone else who is on this journey or wants to begin this journey or needs to finish this journey, then please, take a screenshot and send them a text message, or share it in your Instagram or Facebook stories, email it to someone, send a message in a bottle, whatever you need to do to make sure that this information, if you feel like it is valuable, is shared with someone who it would be valuable to as well. I appreciate you tuning in and listening, and my prayer is that the remainder of 2020 would be very blessed for you, and that, you would really dig into what God has called you to do, and what God has called you to share, and who He has called you to bless. And, you can do it with courage and be committed to the process, because, your labor of love will not be in vain. So, if you have not already, please take a moment or two and leave a review. Know that when you do, someone else is blessed with the opportunity to get this information and be connected with the community, as well as her bounce back guide. Again, I thank you for listening. I pray you are blessed. And as always, I will leave you with this: God is not going to play you, but if you aren't willing to develop a plan to share your story, then sis, I promise you, you're playing yourself. And we do not want to end 2020 playing ourselves, right? Be blessed.